Hi guys, welcome to my Plain and Simple Life channel and blog. And so the last time I made sourdough bread, I made the nice round rustic loaf. Got a nice chewy crumb to it, good texture when you toast it, you know, things like that. But my husband wanted a sandwich, and he didn't want to use my bread. He calls it my special fancy bread. So I went on a search to find the best sandwich bread, sourdough sandwich bread. Like I've said before, you know, I've got some gluten issues, and so I'm wanting to do something that I can have too and not have to worry about it upsetting my belly. So I stumbled across this because I tried many recipes. And basically it's your basic sourdough recipe, and you just add a little bit of sugar, a little bit of fat, and then it makes a sandwich loaf, right? Well, mine was not coming out the way that I wanted it to, so I kept searching. And then one day I was making some pretzels, some sourdough pretzels. I only wanted to make basically a half a batch, but I had made the whole batch of dough. So I just, you know, like smushed out the dough, rolled it up real tight, put it in a bread pan, and set it to the side. And was like, I'll deal with that in later, next day or something like that. So the next morning I got up and it had risen and filled up the bread pan, and I thought, well, I'll just go ahead and bake bread with it, you know. And it turned out to be the softest, easiest to slice, easiest to chew, worked well with like peanut butter and jelly, you know, stuff with runny stuff, you know, that would normally go through like sourdough holes and stuff. But it turned out to be the best bread. So this one's husband approved, son approved, all the sandwich eaters in your life approved. So it's also my pretzel roll, or what I make the pretzels out of. So you can use it for that as well. You would just do a few extra steps, and I want to do a video on that, so stay tuned for that. Also, if you all would hit the subscribe button, and so you don't miss any more recipes or tips and tricks about farm life, and hit the like button too. So we are going to go ahead and get started. So we're going to use the mixer today. This is my Big Bertha, my mixer. And she likes big loads, so I'm going to do a double loaf today, or make 2 loaves today. But my basic recipe for 1 loaf, if you're just wanting to do 1 loaf, is a half a cup of fed starter. Scratch that. It is 1 cup of fed starter, 1 cup of water, 3 cups of all-purpose flour, 1/4 cup of butter that is softened so that it gets incorporated in here really easy, and 2 teaspoons of salt and 2 teaspoons of sugar. And you're going to mix that up in here until it creates a soft, stretchy dough that you can do the window pane test, and I'll show you that in a little bit. But like I said, today we're gonna double everything. So we're gonna do the 6 cups of flour, 1 cup of starter, 2 cups of water, and then 4 teaspoons of sugar, 4 teaspoons of salt, and a stick of butter, softened. Okay, so let's get in it. And then we're also going to talk about bread pans that you can use if you don't have one, you know what to do, and you know, things like that. So let's go ahead and get started. Let me get my measuring cups. So on my butter, I was trying to soften it this morning. I pulled it straight out of the fridge, and of course it's hard as rock. So I put it in the skillet to soften it, and got sidetracked, went on, did something else, and melted it. But I stuck it back in the refrigerator so it's nice and cool now, and that'll work just fine as well. So we are going to do 6 cups. Here we go, 6 cups. Let's get this back over. We are going to do 1 cup of starter. And this is fed up starter, and it's a strong starter. Let me show you how I check and make sure that my starter is strong enough. It's called a float test. This is non-chlorinated water. I just take tap water, put it in my jar, set it out, cover it so no dirt or flies or anything like that get in there. It's not fly season right now, but it will be. So you just get you some water and take you out just a little bit of your starter that has been fed, okay? And then drop it in. Okay. Now, do you see how that's floating and it's not sinking to the bottom? That is a good starter, and that will make a nice loaf of bread. If it sinks, it's not ready yet. And if you do try to make it with unstrong starter or weak starter, then you will be disappointed in the loaf. It will still eat, but it won't be as big, and it won't rise as good, and things like that. So if this was to sink, then I would just make pancakes today, or maybe some English muffins, something that uses something else to rise it. But it's good and strong, so we're gonna go ahead and make it. I need a cup of water anyway. Well, let's go ahead and do all the water. We're gonna do 2 cups today because we're making a double batch. Almost out of water now. Okay. So 2 cups. And we are going to do a cup of starter. When it comes to using your starter, if I was to have a bunch in here and wanted to use some up, you can totally use more starter. You would just adjust your flour and your water. And of course, the more starter you use, the more faster your rise is going to be. And with sandwich bread, you can if you get a good rise on it, you can actually bake it in one day, like start off early in the morning and then bake it that evening. Or do the overnight thing as well. But if you was in a hurry, you could totally do that. Now, the longer you ferment your dough, the better off it's going to be for your belly. It's going to have more time to pre-digest that gluten so that it's easier for you. Even if you're not gluten sensitive, you may want to try to use sourdough just to make things easier on your belly and to make the nutrients more bioavailable to be absorbed into your system. Okay. So I used almost all my starter, and that's all you need to start your next batch, is just a little bit around the edges and the sides. I'd say a good healthy teaspoon will inoculate this whole jar the next time with no difficulty. Okay, so we've got the water, the starter, the flour. We're going to do the salt. Now, salt is optional. Salt is optional, but it's very highly recommended because without salt, you get a very plain tasting dough. There's no good flavor to it. So we are going to do 4 teaspoons. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now I use Redmond's real salt. And the thing with real salt is, you see it? It's pink, but it's got all them little chunks in it too. That is minerals. So Redmond's real salt has over 80 minerals in with the sodium chloride. Where table salt just has. It's been stripped down to sodium chloride. But with all those other minerals, salt doesn't become an enemy anymore. It doesn't make you retain fluid like table salt does. It can actually help lower blood pressure versus raise it because it has all kinds of magnesium and potassiums in it, which helps get the water off of you. Open up your vessels with the magnesium. So really check into that. You know, Google real salt versus table salt, and you will be really surprised. So we got 1, 2, 3, and 4. This honey here is getting a little bit old, so it's not as clear. It's it's forming that sugar in it, the sugar crystals. Totally good to use in baking. In fact, I don't even, heat it up, melt it back down. When it does turn to sugar, I just scoop it out and use it in baking dishes. So 4 teaspoons of a sweetener, I'm using honey, 4 teaspoons of salt, a stick of butter, 2 cups of water, 6 cups of flour is already in here, and this is the stick of butter. Softened is better than melted, but this will totally work, totally be fun. Like I said, this mixer will do all the work that we need it to do. And that is cool. That is not hot melted butter. That is cooled butter. Okay. So now that we got all the ingredients in the bowl, we're going to put the lid on it. Because Big Bertha really likes to work the dough. Okay. And we are going to turn it on low until it gets mixed. And then we're going to put it on, I put mine on 3. If you have the Bosch stand mixer, it really wants to work. It doesn't want to be at a slow speed. So go ahead and crank that up to like 2 or 3. And it's got its settings all the way up to 4. I don't put it on 4 unless I'm whipping something because then it starts to wobble. But 3, it really mixes that dough good. But 1 until we get it all blended up. And you all can't see. Okay. Take this off so make sure you all can see. But see how it's a shaggy dough? Not very sticky, but nice and shaggy and incorporated. I'm going to leave it set like this for about 15 to 30 minutes and then come back, and then we're going to blend it for 10 minutes or mix it for 10 minutes on 3, and that is going to knead it until it is soft and smooth and shiny, and then we'll do the window pane test and I'll show you that. Okay guys, while this is still setting and for the initial 15 minutes before I start really mixing it, I want to talk to you about bread pans. So this one here is my favorite. It is stone. It's from Pampered Chef, and it is well seasoned, as you can see. It just takes a little bit of butter in the corners, across the bottom, and it's pretty much good to go. It is very well seasoned. It is one of my favorites. The trick to it is you got to get the loaf out when it's done, or it'll continue to cook inside the stone because the stone will stay hot longer. Same thing if you have a cast iron one. I do not have a cast iron one, but it will stay hot longer, and just grease it up real good. Bake it in there. When it's done, dump it out on your rack. I pretty much dump them out no matter what pan I'm using. This is the one you're going to find at Walmart, Dollar General, you know, whatever store you got near you. It does a perfectly fine job. Don't really have too much to say. Just grease it. It is a non-stick finish on it. Just grease it up real good, and that one will be good to go. And then we have this one here. I saw, I forget her name, but she is Daily Sourdough. That's her YouTube channel. And she got some of these about 2 years ago or so. And it makes the square loaf, you know, just like your Wonder Bread or, you know, bunny bread or whatever you get at the store. And it's in a square loaf. So this will make the square loaf. So what you would do in here is, after you grease it real well, and these are steam holes right there. So it is going to allow the steam to come out. But you would grease it up real good, especially the corners, because they are so square that you really got to get in those corners real good, because your dough is going to get in that corner real good. I do like the square loaf because it fits perfectly in like a toaster. If you take your lunch and you take sandwiches and you've got one of them little plastic containers that you put your sandwich in, this loaf here will fit in that really well. And it also has the lid on it. So as you're letting it rise, you put the lid on it and it rises. And you leave the lid on until you're done baking it, or about halfway through baking is what I do. So about halfway through, then the crust is pretty much made. It just needs to brown. So I will slide it off then and allow it to brown, but it's not going to raise anymore or rise anymore. And it's not going to stick to the lid. You want to oil the lid too. So that's what's nice about this one. These here, your dough can rise and create that big mushroom top. It makes a really pretty loaf, but sometimes it won't fit in your containers. So whatever you got, just use it. If you do not have a bread pan, then you're not going to get as tall a loaf, unless you have like maybe an old, Corral ware. They have the rectangled ones. You can make it in that. That would be a good substitute. But if you don't have anything like that and you just have a baking sheet, then you can create an Italian looking loaf, and you would still roll it up in a log, put it on your cookie sheet with parchment paper, and allow it to double there. But it's not going to be tall. It's going to be, you know, like an Italian loaf, but it still will be soft. It still will be usable as a sandwich bread. So you really don't need anything, but if you want the shape and the style of bread, then you'll need a bread pan. So I'm going to turn my mixer on now, and it is going to mix for about 10 minutes on 3 until it creates that stretchy good dough. So I'm going to turn it on. I'll let you see what it looks like right now. Hasn't done too much rising. It is still shaggy dough. But we are going to turn it on 3 now. And I'm going to let it do the work for me. If you don't have a mixer, you can totally do this by hand. It's going to take you about a half hour to 45 minutes. I have done it before, but I have weak shoulders, so I let Big Bertha do the work for me. So I'm going to turn you off now and bring you back. Okay, now you see how nice and soft and smooth that dough is? I bet it's ready. And also, when it goes from being like a batter on the inside and it starts creating that big ball of dough and it cleans the outside of your bowl, that's also a sign that your dough is ready. But let's pull this up. It should not be very sticky. So we're going to pull up some and we're going to check it. It tore a little bit. Yeah, not ready. Not ready yet. See you in a few minutes. Let's check this again. It's even less stickier than it was. Still tore. So, a few more minutes. Okay, guys, this should be good and done. Okay. Okay. That is pretty thin. I'm going to call this good. We are going to put this in a bowl, cover it with a wet towel, and let it double. That'll take about 10 to 12 hours. See you all then. Okay guys, so now it has risen, it has doubled in size. So I am going to take this, knead it up a little bit more, cut it in half, and shape it for its second rise. I'm going to use two different pans and show you how they both work. And I need to grease them up real quick. You can use lard, bacon grease, Crisco, spray oil, whatever you want to use. Butter. I'm using butter. Butter makes everything taste better. Okay. Let's get this one. Now, if you do have a square metal pan, get the corners really good because your dough is going to go in there. You don't want it to stick. If you have a loaf pan with a lid, then you want to oil the lid too. Okay. So we're going to knead this out. Because in sandwich bread, you don't want the big holes. You want a nice tight crumb. Okay. So I'm going to roll this out to the length of my pan. And then pull it tight and roll it. Pull and roll. Tuck in your ends. There you go. Okay. Smash it out. And pull and roll. And tuck your ends. Now we let these rise until they're almost to the top of the pan, and then we bake them. This can take several hours, about 6 to 8 hours or so. So I'll come get you when they're done. Okay guys, so we're back, and I just wanted to show you the difference in the pans, how they rose. So this loaf come out of this pan here, and you can see how much it rose. I let it rise overnight and then baked it this morning. And then this one here was in this pan with the lid on it, and this is all that it rose. It was just a little bit. When I baked it for the first 20 minutes with the lid on. This one was open, so you got more oven spring. And then after 20 minutes, I took the lid off, turned them around in the oven for an even bake. And that pan is still hot. And let me show you the difference between the sourdough and the regular. They still got a little bit of a crumb, you hear it? And then it's not cooled completely. Still a little bit hot, but you can see just how tight the bubbles are and how squishy it is. And like I said, it's still hot, but I don't know anybody that can bake a loaf of bread and not cut into it when it's hot. And then this one here. Now this crumb is softer. This is the one that was in the bread pan with the lid. And that crust is softer and still nice and tight, nice and squishy. Now as these steam, the crust will get a little bit softer and won't be as flaky. All right guys, so you all make your breads and put some pictures on the comments of what your breads look like and how they taste. Thanks.